Chapter 41, Chapter 38, The Dragon of Gate. Chapter 38, The Dragon of Gate. It was somewhat surprising how easily one could get used to the feeling of their entire town flying through the air. The sunrise was just as beautiful as any other days had been, as Ryu and Bao sat on the porch of their home, watching it slowly move and drinking coffee. The township didn't move quite as fast as the great bird's flight, but its speed was still respectable, and its motion smooth now that it was free of the land.
"Morning, fellas," Azusa said as he and McLean came jogging up.
"Morning," Bao replied, and Ryu nodded.
"So,"
McLean said after a moment, both of them jogging in place.
"The town's flying now."
"Seems that way," Ryu agreed.
"A flying town,"
Azusa repeated, slowly shaking his head, his eyes distant.
"That sure is a thing. Can't argue with the view, though." "This coming from you."
McLean snorted.
"You could pick an argument with a rock, rather matter of fact, you did once. I was there. I saw you do it." "Bet that wasn't the only thing you saw that night, either, after what you drank,"
Azusa retorted.
"I'm just hoping you learned your lesson about exotic herbs and spices after that." "Oh, it's a lesson you want, is it?"
McLean glared at him as the two brothers continued jogging down the road.
"Well, hell, why didn't you say so, bro? I'd be glad to give you one of those, anytime, anywhere, no charge." "Implying there's anything you could teach me, bro?"
Azusa snickered.
"Last I heard, it was more the other way around."
Ryu and Bao watched them leave, bickering and brawling, before turning their eyes back to the sky, and taking another sip of coffee.
"Hey, you brats!"
Burrows the magician yelled, clomping up the road towards them a few moments later.
"You two the only ones awake?" "Nero is,"
Bao replied calmly.
"I'm guessing you weren't referring to him, though. And speaking of being awake, isn't it a little early for you to be up?" "What do you mean, early?"
Burrows snorted.
"Anyways, you'll do, Dogi. Don't need you for anything, Battison. Sean has more magical potential than you." "I'd retort, but I can't really argue that one,"
Ryu admitted.
"Didn't think you would,"
the old man said, smirking for a millisecond before scowling again.
"Anyways, Dogi, you and the other half-wits I can do anything with, be at my place before dinner tonight, and we'll go over the last of what I've got to teach you. It's still not as much as I should, but it's about as much as you lot will be able to manage, so it'll have to do." "Sounds good,"
Bao replied levelly.
"I'll even ask Deez if she wants to sit in." "Ah."
Burrows blinked, then coughed.
"So. The town's flying now, is it?" "Seems that way."
Ryu nodded.
"Pretty impressive,"
the old man conceded, somewhat grudgingly.
"I'm not even sure if I could pull something like that off." "Tell it to Aikaji,"
Bao advised him.
"She's the one who got the lost technology running." "Yeah, sure."
Burrows grumbled.
"I've got a reputation to maintain, you know. And speaking of which, that's my quota for socializing today. I'm going to get some sleep."
Ryu and Bao watched him walk away, muttering to himself under his breath, before glancing at the sunrise once more and taking another sip of coffee.
"Oi, kids!"
Leamington roared, walking over from the east side of town.
"Up and at 'em, hey? Good for you." "It's a good way to start the day,"
Ryu told him, as they both raised a hand in greeting.
"I take it Beretta's awake, too." "Of course she is."
Leamington chuckled.
"I taught her well, after all. Didn't even bat an eyelid about this whole flying town business, just said she was glad our shipment came in the other day before we took off. Can't really say we saw this one coming, but hell, I doubt anybody could have." "Seems that way,"
Ryu said calmly, raising an eyebrow.
"Shipment?" "Yeah, a bunch of stuff that I had to order special, with Hans's help,"
Leamington explained.
"Don't think I've ever told him just how grateful I am for his connections. I really should, one of these days. Now that that's all here, me and Beretta can finish up putting some surprises together for you guys. From what I hear about what the lot of you are up to these days, you're probably going to need them soon enough." "Probably, knowing our luck,"
Bao admitted ruefully.
"Is this going to make that a problem for you, running your business? The whole flying town thing?" "Nero's already called a meeting to work all that out,"
he assured them.
"I think the plan's to park somewhere about once a month or so, and just have all our deliveries made there. Kind of cumbersome, but we've all worked with worse. And it ain't like I'm complaining about the whole flying town business, you know. Somehow, we can't really argue against it either,
Ryu said, almost honestly.
Didn't think you would.
Leamington chuckled.
Alright, I'll get out of your hair. Get the rest of your gang up and at 'em, you hear? They ought to take a lesson from you.
Ryu and Bao watched him return to his house, then returned to gazing up at the sunrise, taking another sip of coffee.
Oh, good,
Senny murmured as she opened the door of the building she shared with her cousins and grandmother next door.
I was hoping you would be up. Good morning, Bao. Mr. Battison. Morning, Mississippi.
Ryu started to say, then frowned, realizing something.
You know, I don't think I ever did hear just what your family's surname is. Hey. It's Karnov,
she replied, arching an eyebrow.
And I think there's more than enough that we don't seem to know about to balance that out. We certainly didn't expect our new hometown to start flying, for one thing. It's not like we expected it either, you know,
Bao told her, smiling.
It was a surprise for us, too. Come on, Senny, give us more credit than that. I suppose you've earned that much,
she said lightly, turning her eyes to him again.
Actually, there's something else I wanted to talk to you about, Bao. Considering the fact that my cousins are all assisting your team, I believe it would be best for me to do so as well. With Mr. Battison and Dee's unable to perform fusion, that leaves 3 options, and I believe I'd feel most comfortable doing so with you. On a purely professional basis, you understand. Of course,
Bao replied after a moment.
I've never really done it before, none of the others really matched with me, but I'm sure we can work something out. As a matter of fact, I'd prefer that we avoid getting emotional about it just as much as you, considering I already have a fiancé. That's about the only snag in this. You and me are both professionals, but Sylvia has met some of your cousins already, and well.
He left it hanging.
Completely understandable, considering my cousins,
Senny agreed, rolling her eyes.
And my sister, for that matter. Speaking of her, I'd heard that we'll be setting down in Gate, south of Windia, soon. If so, you might want to look for Shin there. That's where she said she was going, when last I met up with her, although I'm not sure why. We'll keep an eye out for her,
Ryu promised.
I'd appreciate it.
Senny nodded.
I assume that your fiancé visits here regularly, Bao. If so, the next time she does, I'll talk to her and explain the situation. Sounds good.
Bao made a face.
I'd offer to do it myself, but I doubt that would go well. Despite never having been in a relationship myself, I'd agree with that assessment,
Senny said, smiling again.
Have a good morning, gentlemen.
They watched her walk back inside, then looked up at the sunrise once more, taking another sip of coffee.
Do you ever feel like everybody who lives in this town is completely nuts?
Bao asked after a long moment.
What, because they're all taking this whole flying town thing so casually?
Ryu asked, raising an eyebrow.
Compared to everything else they've seen on account of us, it's not that bad. So it's our problem, not theirs, then?
Bao rolled his eyes.
Guess I should have known. No question about the overall sanity level of our team.
Another moment passed before he spoke again.
So, the town's heading to Gate, then? It seemed to be the best idea.
Ryu nodded.
There aren't that many places something this big can actually set down, but there's an old mining pit off to the west of the town that should do. It'll take the place at least another day to get there, though. We'll just have to go out looking for Smith the old-fashioned way. Guess that's the logical way to do it, alright,
Bao agreed.
Besides, we've still got Mina. Don't think she minds helping us out. As a matter of fact, she'd probably get depressed if we didn't go flying with her anymore.
He snapped his fingers.
That reminds me. Whatever happened to Grandpa? You know, the whale. Spart and Jean went back over to the Whale Cape and returned the bell to that old lunatic who lives there,
Ryu explained.
Promised that we'd come visit the big guy every now and then. That's nice.
Bao smiled.
We probably should. We might not need him anymore, but he's still a good guy, you know? For a whale, I mean. You know, some scientists actually think they're sentient. Like a clan? It's just that they can't talk, even if they wanted to learn how. Their voices just don't work that way. Wouldn't surprise me, knowing that.
Ryu started to say, then trailed off, staring off to the east, as a winged figure blocked out the rising sun, approaching quickly.
Shit.
A moment later, the entire town rang with the sound of the great bird's scream as she dived towards them, a pair of the hideous winged demons that had been released from gate tearing at her legs and tail.
No time to get everybody else up,
he yelled, glancing at Bao for only a moment, long enough to see that he was taking aim, before transforming. As he flew up, first one, then the other demon fell back from the great bird, each clutching at their eyes. Before they could recover, Ryu passed the bird, and reduced both of her tormentors to ash in a storm of blazing blue light. It was only a moment later, as he transformed back, exhausted, that he realized that he was still at least 20 feet above ground level. More. We still need more power. God needs more power. Give yourselves to our God. Pray to God. Praise God. Sacrifice your bodies and souls to God. You are destined to become God's power.
Double shit,
he muttered, then grunted as strong, slim arms wrapped around him, catching him in mid-fall.
Hell of a wake-up call,
Kat grumbled as she landed on Lacquer's roof, prompting a yell from inside.
There'd better be coffee. Shut up, you. Should be,
Ryu grunted.
Thanks for the save. Good response time. What did you do, jump out your window? Yeah. Ah.
He glanced to the north, where Mina had landed once the coast was clear. Now that he could see her more clearly, he spotted several bleeding wounds, and fought an urge to punch somebody, since the only person handy was Kat and she didn't seem in the mood for a scuffle. Looking back at her, he saw that she was wearing an oversized white shirt that hung off of her shoulders and came down to her knees, and raised an eyebrow.
Not that I mind, but you might want to go back inside and get dressed. Don't tempt me to drop you off of the roof,
she shot back before jumping down, still holding him. Setting him down, she gave him a sleepy wink.
Besides, 50-50 chance you'll be seeing it soon enough anyways. Mina.
Nina cried, bursting out the front door, a nightrobe thrown hastily around her own nightshirt. Hers was much more lacy.
Are you all right? And there's the other side of the equation, right on cue,
Kat muttered under her breath.
Maybe you've got a point. I should probably talk to her about that. Might want to let me, actually,
Ryu suggested, as he saw Bao approach her as well, somewhat hesitantly. As soon as the words left his lips, he realized they had been a mistake, but it was too late. Avoiding meeting Kat's eyes again, he recited a few curses mentally before approaching Nina and Bao.
Ryu.
She turned around and embraced him.
Thank you. When I heard her, I thought. I know,
he acknowledged, holding her for a moment before releasing her.
It's okay, though. Bao will heal her up. And, well.
He looked down for a moment, then back up again, by which time she was blushing.
Don't say another word,
she told him, avoiding his eyes, as she turned away.
He said the same thing to me,
Kat called over.
Hate to admit it, but he's probably right. She is okay, isn't she? Yes, it looks like the wounds are shallow,
Nina replied, still blushing.
Very well, then. Bao, I'll leave you to it. I'll fix her up, don't worry,
Bao promised, turning to the great bird and starting to chant. Only when both girls had gone inside and Mina had been healed did he turn to give Ryu a look.
Hope you remember that promise you made me, buddy. As soon as we're done with the destiny bullshit.
He put his hand to his face.
I remember.
Lowering the hand, he saw that Mina was giving him the most skeptical look he had ever seen from a bird.
What?
The trill of her response had a decidedly sarcastic tone to it. It soon turned out that the incident had awakened everybody in the town, including all of their team, even D's. Once everybody had gotten dressed, drank enough coffee to cure them of their surliness, and grabbed some breakfast, they returned to the meeting room once more. Nobody said a word about the fact that Nero had already had the couch taken down to the bottom of the well, which Ryu was grateful for.
Okay, change of plans,
he said once everybody was seated. He had had a couple of wise fruit, but still felt worn out.
I think it'd be for the best if Mina stayed at home for a while. Hopefully, there'll be somewhere here she'll feel comfortable. The trees we brought with us aren't exactly big enough for her, but then I doubt any tree in the world would be, except maybe a wise tree. I'll talk to her,
Nina promised.
She won't like it, but she'll listen when I tell her why. Good.
Ryu nodded.
I'm not too happy with it myself, for a lot of reasons, but as long as those things are out there, she shouldn't be. We'll just have to use magic to transport ourselves around while we look for Smith. Somehow, I have this feeling that she won't be at the first place we go. Just like old times, then,
Cat grunted.
Let's just hope she left word. On the plus side, there's not much of the world where we haven't been to by now,
Sten pointed out.
Which means we should be able to warp within a day's distance of just about anywhere, at most. Well, unless she went to Prima. That would kind of suck. Don't do that,
Bao told him, looking disgusted.
Let's hope not,
Ryu agreed, frowning.
When we do, I think it's time we get some answers out of her. This whole mysterious past involving the demons thing was cute at first, but this far in, it's gotten to the point where we need to know her story. Especially when it comes to that dragon. I'm particularly interested in that part, for obvious reasons. We'll figure something out,
Cat told him, meeting his eyes.
Your mom.
She struggled with it for a moment before giving up.
We'll figure something out. What she said.
Bao nodded.
It's gonna be alright, buddy. Indeed, Mon Ami,
Jean added, frowning slightly.
What I cannot understand is why Father Hulk would ever be so foolish as to attack their protector. I must confess, the same question has been plaguing me as well,
Spar said quietly.
Is there any chance that he could be a demon?
Nina suggested.
I know he hardly seems the type, and we already know that many lower-ranking members of the faith are innocent, but I think he would have been a bit smarter about it, if he was, though,
Sten pointed out.
Had a better excuse ready for when the boss throttled him.
Power. We need your power. God needs your power. Give yourself to our God. Pray to God. Praise God. Sacrifice your bodies and souls to God. You are destined to become God's power.
That was a mistake,
Ryu muttered, scowling.
I shouldn't have overreacted like that. It's just my mom, you know? And that guy. Even if he's innocent, something about him just pisses me off.
Sighing, he stood up.
Well, we're not getting anywhere here. Might as well head on over to the desert and see if I was right. Have fun,
Nero drawled as they all walked outside.
It's Smith,
Bao reminded him as he closed the door behind them.
Not gonna happen. Alright, who wants to start us off? Allow me, Mon Ami,
Jean replied, casting the spell that caused the world to melt around them before reforming into the thieves' tomb.
Do you suppose the man on duty will be holding a grudge, by any chance?
Spar pointed out as they walked in.
Not if he knows what's good for him, he won't,
Cat replied ominously.
Maybe we'll get lucky and somebody different will be on duty,
Ryu suggested. He turned out to be right. When they entered the main room, they found a serious-looking young man with short, slicked-back blonde hair and thin glasses sitting behind the desk doing paperwork.
Welcome to the Thieves' Tomb, home of the Thieves' Tomb. Would you like to enter as individuals or as a group?
He rattled off dryly without looking up.
Actually, we're here looking for somebody else,
Ryu told him.
A girl, maybe 14 or so. Blue hair, bat wings. Oh, you're the ones, then.
The clerk actually looked at them now, though his eyes held no real interest.
Miss Smith asked me to keep a message for you. And by asked, you mean bribed, right?
Dees winked at him.
The Thieves' Tomb management has a strict policy against bribery,
the young man replied sternly.
And yes. She asked me to let you know that she decided to visit the Circus Maxi Tusk.
Everybody exchanged a look.
I am remarkably unsurprised by this revelation,
Spar said dryly.
Yeah, something like that.
Sten grimaced.
Any chance they'll still be in Tunlin? Knowing our luck.
Ryu shook his head.
Don't bet on it. Actually, the Circus Maxi Tusk is currently in southern Oria,
the clerk told them.
They stopped by here recently, you see, and when they left, that was where they were headed. I believe they intended to see if there would be any business involved with a new town there. Wait, what?
Ryu blinked.
Was that there? I didn't notice. I believe Monsieur Watts would have told us, would he not?
Jean suggested.
Perhaps they only arrived after we took off,
Nina suggested.
I doubt they would have remained long once they realized it was our town. Worth a shot.
Ryu shrugged.
Anyways, thanks, I guess. Have a nice day, and try not to die,
the clerk told him absently, returning to his paperwork.
My turn, then,
Spar murmured as they left, already casting the spell, and a moment later they stood on the edge of a vast, deep dirt pit that was quickly being filled by the same snowflakes that covered the grass and trees around them.
Not again,
Cat growled, holding her arms tight around her.
Lawton. You could just dress warmer, you know,
Rand pointed out.
Yeah, but too much bulky clothing gets in the way in a fight,
she pointed out.
I just hate the cold, that's all. Hey, looks like that guy was right.
A familiar, red and white circus tent was indeed standing off to the east, near the path leading up into the mountains.
Interesting timing, but I won't complain.
Ryu shrugged, leading them over. As they approached, a young man with hair dyed bright pink and an unpleasant sneer on his face walked out, carrying an axe.
Holy shit,
he muttered as his eyes fell across them.
Don't tell me there's actually some, gah.
He dropped both the axe and the sneer.
You. Oh, good,
Rand said lightly.
You remember us. That makes this easier. We're looking for a teenaged girl,
Ryu followed up bluntly.
Seen any around here recently? Yeah.
The carney quickly nodded.
Paid me to hold a message for anybody who came looking for her. As long as they weren't from the Church of Saint Eva, anyways. You're not, are you? Do we look like paladins?
Dees asked, smiling. He paled.
Right, she said she was going to meet a client at the same restaurant where, and I quote, you first ran into Lee. Don't ask me what that means, I don't know, but I'm guessing you do. Unfortunately, you're right on the zenny there.
Ryu made a face.
Alright, we'll leave you alone.
He waited a beat before continuing.
For now. Keep out of trouble, you hear? Let me guess,
Dees said as they turned away.
The Wildcat Cafe. I'm afraid so,
Nina murmured, glancing at Jean and Spar.
And none of the three of you were with us when we journeyed there. I knew I should have put more effort into learning the warp spell, no matter how unnecessary it seemed at the time. Don't sweat it,
the snake sorceress told her.
I've been there before by myself. I'll take care of this one. Wait, what?
Bao blinked as she cast the spell.
What the hell were you doing there? Do you really want me to answer that?
She asked, raising an eyebrow, as the familiar surroundings were replaced by the equally snow-covered Simon countryside, near a massive cliff face. To the east, a roaring waterfall poured into the Sima River, and ahead of them, a brass plate over a cavern mouth identified the world's most out-of-the-way restaurant.
Actually, no.
Bao shook his head quickly, as did both Ryu and Nina.
Never mind. I thought so. Good evening.
The bouncer greeted them as they walked in, seated behind a desk that was identical to the one in the thieves' tomb. Almost as tall as Rand with just as many muscles, he was tan and bald, with a brilliant smile, clad in only a bright green speedo and a bow tie. As his tiny eyes looked them over, he blinked.
Ah, yes, Mr. Battison and company. Miss Smith asked me to take a message for you. I'd ask if she was a frequent customer, but I actually don't want to know,
Ryu replied with a sigh.
No offense. None taken.
The bouncer said cheerfully.
She said that she was going to go buy some whale cakes. I'm not quite sure why she didn't seem hungry, but there you are. Whale cakes, hey.
Ryu sighed.
Okay, thanks. See you around.
They left without another word, at least until they were outside, at which point he put a hand to his face.
Alright, looks like we're heading to the Whale Cape. This is going to take all day, isn't it? Seems that way,
Bao said with an absolutely straight face.
I can hurt you. Actually, mon ami, the business has relocated,
Jean told him.
I believe that it was hometown, in Oria, according to Monsieur Nero. Allow me, by all means.
Another spell later, and they stood before the gates of the town where four of them had spent most of the last 10 years, before their lives had changed so much in such a short amount of time.
I don't suppose we'd have time to make a quick stopover at the Rangers Guild and fill Elder Allen in on the situation?
Bao asked wistfully as they walked down the streets.
To see Sylvia, you mean?
Dee smirked.
That's what I just said, isn't it? I suppose we really should,
Ryu said, feigning reluctance.
It has been a while, and it's not far. Right down here.
He walked into the alley containing the basement entrance to the local branch, where he and Bao had worked for years, then paused, frowning. The way down was locked and chained, and a sign next to it proclaimed that the guild office was closed indefinitely, in lieu of recent events.
Or not. Well, that's not a good sign,
Sten said dryly after a long moment.
Literally. Think it's because of us? You know, Evray and all. That does seem to be the most likely reason,
Nina agreed.
Now that I think about it, somehow, I doubt that one's going to go over well with the guild when we do get around to explaining it to them. We'll just have to extra persuasive, then.
Ran shrugged.
We could check her apartment,
Ryu suggested.
See if she's there. Yeah, okay.
Bao shrugged, trying to look nonchalant and failing.
Oh, hey, there that place is.
He pointed across the street, to where a vendor stood behind a cooking cart, the banner atop it proclaiming
whale cakes. What surprises me is that she hasn't come looking for us,
Dees commented as they walked over.
We did kind of pass over Oria after we took off. I'm pretty sure she would have noticed that. She doesn't know the warp spell,
Bao reminded her, frowning.
Maybe she couldn't get up there. On second thought, let's not check her place. Oh, man, I'm gonna be in for it when she does find a way, aren't I? Oh, yeah.
Ryu nodded gravely.
Whale cakes.
The man behind the cart was calling out.
Get your whale cakes, here. Ah, you, sir. You look like a man who's in the mood for a nice, piping hot whale cake. Made from 100% genuine authentic imitation whale. Tempting,
Ryu remarked dryly.
But what I'm really looking for is some information on a friend of ours. You mean?
The man trailed off.
Miss Patty Smith,
Spar said with a nod.
I assume you recognize the name. SHHHHH.
The man urged them.
Keep quiet about that. She's still wanted around here, you know. I was wondering if anybody was actually going to show up. She said that if you did, to tell you that she was going to go make a name for herself. Pull something off that no thief has ever done before.
Jean blinked.
Pardon, but has she not already done so? Even bigger than Thieves' Tomb, man,
the vendor explained.
Get this. You know that flying town that came past here the other day?
Everybody exchanged another glance.
Don't tell me.
Ryu raised a hand to his face, as did everybody else, even Jean and Spar.
She's going to rob it. What can I say?
He shrugged.
The girl loves her work. Thanks, I guess.
Ryu sighed as they walked off.
So, stop me if I'm getting this wrong.
Kat said slowly.
But the way this looks to me, right now, is that we've spent the last hour chasing Smith all around the world, and the whole time, she's right in our own town. Guess so.
Bao made a face.
That's Smith in a nutshell. Have I ever mentioned how annoying she is? Because damn, she's annoying. We noticed,
Nina remarked mildly.
Which brings to mind the question we were discussing a few minutes ago. How, exactly, was she intending to actually get on board? Why don't we ask her?
Dee suggested as Spar brought them back home, outside their building.
I'm sure she'll be happy to explain it to us. And by that, you mean brag,
Ryu added.
You're probably right about that, too. Okay, let's. There you are.
Nero interrupted, opening the door.
Good, you're back already. You'll never believe who I'll just caught trying to break into here.
For the third time that day, everybody exchanged a glance.
Mademoiselle Smith?
Jean asked eventually.
Hey.
Nero blinked.
How'd you know? It's been one of those days,
Ryu replied, shaking his head.
Where is she, then? Elle locked her up, of course,
Nero explained as they walked down the road towards the Highlander's home.
Turned the lower level of his place into a guard station, you know? Got a cell in there and everything. Well, at least he's taking his job seriously,
Bao said dryly.
Maybe we made the right call bringing him in after all. I guess,
Sten muttered dubiously.
I don't know, something about that guy still just kind of gets under my skin. It's like he's hiding something, you know. I guess.
Kat shrugged.
Maybe it's just that he's so girly, you know? How he looks, I mean. He doesn't act like it or anything, but if somebody got him into a dress. Hey, what's wrong? Son of a.
Sten whispered. He had stopped walking, eyes wide, and was staring off into space.
Of course. Why didn't I see it earlier? See what?
Ryu asked, frowning.
Do you know him after all, or something? Yeah.
Sten slowly nodded.
You could say that. Or something. It's not really a big deal, just. I'll talk about it with him later.
Alright, he agreed. If Sten didn't want to talk about it, that was his decision. The door to Elle's house was leaning open. Looking inside, he saw that the entire lower level of the house had been remodeled, just as Nero had said. The cell was occupying the back right corner, a nook blocked off with steel bars, and Patty was inside, lounging on her cot.
Don't know what your game is, but you won't get away with it,
Elle was saying, standing in front of the cell with his back to them.
I already told you, once your bosses get back, they'll explain this to you,
the thief replied lazily, turning her head to meet Ryu's eyes.
As a matter of fact, there you are. Hey, Battison. I don't know what you're paying this bozo, but it's too much. As a matter of fact, I think we'll have Nero raise his wages,
Ryu said dryly, walking in.
Hey, elevation, good work. Mr. Battison.
Elle blinked, looking from them to Patty and back again.
Do you know this hoodlum? We're acquainted,
Bao said with a grimace.
Unfortunately. Go ahead and let her out, we need to talk business with her anyways. If you say so, Mr. Dogi,
Elle replied, looking skeptical. Taking a ring of keys from his belt, he unlocked the cell door.
At least you know how to follow orders,
Patty told him sarcastically.
Good for you. Have a biscuit. Come on,
Ryu growled at her.
Let's go. Right, right.
She rolled her eyes as they all walked out into the street, keeping pace with them as naturally as if she had been on the team.
So. I've got a pretty good idea of what went down in Evray, but. Why don't you tell me anyways? The renegades are dead,
Kat told her quietly.
All of them. Even Tika and Claris. I was afraid of that.
Patty said, more somberly than usual.
All right. What else? What else?
The Warren girl asked, voice rising.
That's it? That's all you have to say? And what else do you want me to say, hey?
Patty snapped back.
You want me to break down and cry? Forget it. Yeah, they were good guys, but I wasn't attached to them. It wasn't like we were friends. I don't have friends. Never have, and never will. When you live the kind of life I do, friends get you killed, and I don't have any interest in dying young. So if you've got some kind of sanctimonious moral spiel, you can save it. I'm not interested. Fine,
Ryu said, narrowing his eyes.
We're not exactly paragons of virtue either. So why don't we just cut right to the chase? Why'd you come back here, then, if it wasn't because of that? Because without the renegades, you're the only option I have left,
Patty explained.
Last I checked, we still have a common goal. And I'd bet every stash of zenny I have that it's not over yet, even if Evray really is a crater. It is,
Nina assured her.
That's one thing that went right. The archpriest got away, though. Shit.
Patty scowled.
Alright, here's the deal. The renegades never claimed their payment for taking out Necromancer, so I stopped by an outlet of the First Bank of Prima and told them to send that from my account over to the branch that's opened up here for you. That's 40,000 zenny, right off the bat, just to prove I'm not trying to take advantage of you here. And if that sounds good, I'll pay 80,000 if you can bring me Habaraka's head. How do you know all this stuff, anyways?
Ryu asked bluntly, ignoring the reactions of some of the others to the amounts she was talking about.
You never did actually explain that. Nope.
Patty shook her head.
And I'm not going to, either. That's my business, not yours, and I don't like talking about my private life. Not even if it's relevant to the plan.
Bao asked keenly.
Not freaking likely.
She scowled.
I keep my head down, unlike you idiots. It's how I've lived this long, playing this game. Not as far down as you think,
Ryu said levelly, making a great deal of effort to keep his voice under control.
Let me ask you something. What's your interest in Gate?
He watched as Patty went still and silent, and waited a moment before speaking again.
I said. I heard you,
she snarled, green eyes blazing now.
And I repeat. None of your damn business. Back off, Ryu. We're not trying to screw with you, you idiot,
Dee said, exasperated.
It's important. Why do you think we came looking for you? Wait, what?
Patty blinked.
What's happening in Gate? Those morons went and bombed the dragon there,
Ryu explained, no longer able to keep his own feelings on the matter out of his voice.
The fa. They what?
Patty screamed, her anger and cynicism vanishing in an instant to be replaced by stark, sheer fear and disbelief.
No.
Without another word, she began chanting under her breath. Power. We need more of your power. God needs more of your power. Give yourself to God. Pray to God. Praise God. Sacrifice your bodies and souls to God. You are destined to become God's power.
Hey, wait.
Ryu yelled, as she vanished into the air.
What the hell? Come on, let's go. One more warp, coming right up.
Dees agreed, casting the spell as well, and taking them back to the edge of town. As soon as they arrived, they all saw Patty, racing up through the canyon as if a demon lord were in hot pursuit. Townspeople who had been staring at her in surprise now turned to them, eyes just as wide.
After her!
Ryu yelled unnecessarily, everybody was already moving, as fast as they could run. As they reached the gate, they saw that Father Hulk was still up there. The old man was watching, frowning slightly, as Patty hovered in front of the dragon's head, gently patting it.
Thank Laden,
she said quietly as the group gathered beneath her.
She's wounded, badly, but she's still alive.
After another moment, she descended back to ground level, and turned to glare at Father Hulk.
Are you the one who's responsible for this? Yes,
he started to see, then choked as her whip wrapped around his neck.
Hey!
Ryu yelled, drawing his sword.
Let him go. He screwed up, but he didn't know any better. Yeah, right.
She snarled back.
You, of all people, should be the one who knows better. He's a priest of Saint Eva. They're all rotten to the core.
Despite her words, she pulled her whip back, and Hulk leaned forward on his cane, breathing heavily.
All right, fine. Let's hear it from his own mouth. You. Preacher man. If you've got an explanation, let's hear it. We thought.
Hulk wheezed.
This dragon was the gigantic demon that the Rangers told us about. We were afraid. We were hasty. Forgive us, please. You what?
Patty said flatly.
Ugh. All right, maybe you are just an idiot. This dragon is the last person in the world who you should be afraid of. She's the greatest blessing this town has ever seen, and she always has been, from the day she came here. How do you know that?
Ryu asked, frowning, as the rest of the group traded glances.
You're right, of course, but what's your story with this dragon? I could ask you the same thing,
she replied tightly, leaning forward and meeting his eyes.
For the last time, Ryu, whatever your last name is, that's my business. Hate to break it to you, Smith, if that even is your real name, but if it involves this dragon, it's our business too,
Ryu retorted, hand on his sword.
Talk. Go screw yourself,
she told him, baring her teeth.
In public. Stop this at once, both of you.
Hulk said sternly, apparently recovered.
This is no time for. You stay out of this.
Ryu and Patty both yelled at him simultaneously, then paused to stare at each other.
Ugh.
Patty recovered first, shaking her head.
Listen, you.
She paused, then.
Do you hear that? Here.
Ryu started to object, then paused, frowning. There was something there, something barely audible, as if somebody were whispering too quietly for him to actually hear the words.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Guys.
He glanced at the others, who all shook their heads.
Nothing,
Bao said, glancing at Kat, who shrugged.
And you know how good my ears are. I'm not sure what it is you refer to, either,
Father Hulk agreed, frowning. Another voice broke in, and everybody turned to see a scantily clad young woman, dark of skin and black of hair, stumbling absently through the underbrush.
Hi. What's going on over here?
Nobody spoke for a long moment.
Just a second,
Ryu told Patty and Hulk, neither of who replied, before walking over to the girl.
Hi. Don't suppose your name's Shin? Oh, come on,
Bao muttered under his breath.
Yeah,
she replied, golden eyes vacant.
why? Your granny's looking for you,
He explained.
her and Senny, and the rest of your family, too. Oh,
She said, then waited a moment more before continuing.
okay. Chaos magicians,
Dees muttered disgustedly under her breath as the girl vanished.
they're all the same. A little experimental herbology every now and then's one thing, but mixing them is another story entirely. We might want to talk about that, actually,
Spar murmured.
Right.
Ryu turned back to Patty and Hulk, whose faces were both blank.
Sorry about that. You were saying.
Patty shook her head quickly.
Anyways, I don't actually know what's sealed behind these doors, but whatever it is, it's seriously bad news. Whatever, indeed.
Hulk murmured, stepping closer to Patty. And then, as Ryu suddenly realized where he had seen the old man's cane before, the priest raised a hand, and a wall of silver light appeared between the dragonkin and the other three.
What?
Patty started to yell, only to choke off as an explosion in the air before her slammed her back, spread eagled, against the gate.
It seems that it falls to me to explain the situation, as usual,
Hulk murmured, deep voice rising in pitch and tone as he shrunk and withered, losing height and mass as his back twisted and his head grew.
These doors lead to infinity itself, where our God awaits the day when they will be thrown open. Our glorious Saint Eva. Habaruko.
The dragonkin roared in the same breath, one and all. And behind the barrier of magic, the archpriest of Saint Eva laughed victoriously.
I told you.
Dees spat, glaring at him.
I said that he wouldn't be able to stay away from us. Oh, how fine this is.
Habaruka gloated, ignoring Patty for the moment as he smiled at them.
As I have told you all, your heathen violence is all in vain. Even if you destroy Evray, the most holy city this world has ever known, you cannot stop the ascent of God himself. I get it,
Ryu said slowly, staring at him.
Dad said you were there, with Aruhameral. You've been living a double life, all this time. That's why you spent so much time out of the public eye, in Evray. You weren't even there at all. It was challenging, indeed, to play the part of a small-town preacher in addition to the role God had chosen for me,
Habaruka agreed, still smiling.
But it was all worth it, in order to watch this town, and the gate behind it, so that I could act when you finally came here. I appreciated the audience participation during my show with the bomb, by the way. Your timing was absolutely perfect. It couldn't have been better if I had asked you to come then and there.
His smile widened.
And speaking of Gainer, be sure to thank him for lending me your home. It was quite comfortable. What?
Patty demanded shrilly.
What did you just say about? Now,
Habaruka cut her off with another blast of magic that slammed her head back against the gate.
Little girls should speak when spoken to. So, what's the game?
Ryu said quietly, as the dragonkin spread out. Kat and Jean stood at his side, with Rand, Spar, and Sten behind them, and Dees, Nina and Bao in the back.
Is she your hostage, then? Because I'm not sure if you've noticed, but this time? Nowhere to run to, and nowhere to hide. Sooner or later you're going to have to bring your little wall down. And when you do...
Everybody advanced meaningfully, in perfect sync.
Oh, not at all, young man,
Habaruka corrected him, wagging a finger.
You see, once these doors open, I will simply be able to walk through and return to my God's embrace as he rises to fulfill his destiny and take this world for his own. My dearest, closest friend always believed that it would be you who would open the door for us, Ryu. May I call you Ryu? However, I prefer to seek alternative methods, rather than simply relying upon destiny. I see,
Nina said, cold and furious.
So that is what you had in mind for Ray. Indeed, but despite all of the love I showed him, he failed me in the end,
Habaruka replied, head bowed in a hideous parody of sorrow betrayed by his savage grin.
And so, I was forced to turn to an alternate solution. To the only other member of the Dragon Clan still living in this world aside from yourself and your mother. You.
Patty mumbled, dazed, her head hanging limply.
I'll never help you. Help?
Habaruka tilted his head quizzically.
My dear, you seem to be under a rather severe misapprehension. Our God has no need of your cooperation. No, he requires a far greater sacrifice. Let her go.
Rand yelled, but his voice was filled with desperation rather than fury.
I'm very sorry, Rand, but I can't do that,
Habaruka said, shaking his head as he raised his finger in the air.
Just like your dear mother gave her life for yours, Saint Eva requires the ultimate devotion from Patty. And just like your mother, whether she is of our faith or not is irrelevant. She will repent for the sins of her people, who created this disgusting seal to lock our god away within infinity centuries ago. The Dragon Clan created this gate, and the life of a member of the Dragon Clan was linked to it, to increase its power. The only thing that can pay for life is death. You want a Dragon Clansman's life?
Ryu roared, barely even paying attention to what the old man was saying.
Fine. Drop your wall and try and take mine. I'm right here, Habaruko. Come and get me, if you've got the balls. Oh, but that won't do at all,
Habaruka told him, wagging his finger again.
I am a man of peace, and violence is abhorrent to me. No. Far better to make this quiet, and easy. Don't worry, Patty. All I will do is stop your breath. All that you will have to do is close your eyes, and fall asleep, and it will all be over. The nightmare that you have lived through for these past 10 years will fade away forever, and you will slip into the void beyond life, free of everything you hate. Is that not a blessing? Freedom. No, no, no.
Patty sobbed, head still hanging.
No, I don't want to die. Dad. Mom. Somebody, please help me.
Tears ran down her cheeks as she hung on the gates, arms spread and legs dangling as Claris had.
Big brother. Save me, big brother. No.
Ryu whispered, sword dropping from his hand, as he stared at her and realized what he had been blind to before.
No way. It's impossible. Oh.
Habaruka started to turn towards Patty, then paused, glancing at Ryu sidelong with glittering eye and malevolent smile.
I wonder, do you two know each other? Well, I don't suppose it really matters, at this point.
He raised his finger in the air.
Now then, young lady. Shall we open this gate together, and welcome God into this world?
And then, just as despair tightened its hands around Ryu's throat, the Dragon of Gate brought one gigantic claw around to slam Habaruku into the brush.
Holy shit,
Bao muttered, as everybody stared, as the dragon raised her head, though her eyes remained closed.
She's awake. You,
the Dragon of Gate said, her voice shaking the canyon around them despite a strange softness to her tone.
I remember you. I remember that you talk too much, Habaruko. You always did, when you thought that you had already won. When you thought you had planned for everything, arranged everything perfectly. But that's not the way the world works, is it? There's always something that even you never see coming. I get it.
Sten smacked a fist into his palm.
She woke up when he bombed her, but she played unconscious, until the right moment. Beautiful. An empty boast, Valerie,
Habaruka replied, rising from the tall grass he had been thrown into. He stepped back out, still smiling and unwounded, but his eyes were narrowed now.
Do you intend to fight me, then? Perhaps 10 years ago, you would be able to. But you are weak, now, after all of these years spent sleeping. Your body has atrophied, and you are heavily injured as well. Defend her if you wish, it will do you no good. It may be as you say,
the dragon replied slowly.
And yet, you will not take her life so long as I have breath.
She lowered her head, dipping her snout behind Patty's back, gently forcing her away from the door. And then, with a flick of her head, she sent Patty flying over the silver wall and into the canyon beyond.
Ha!
Dees laughed, sudden and short.
That's right. Sarah Silver Wall works fine indoors, but out here, with no ceiling? That's another story. Oh, Valerie, Valerie.
Habaruko hissed, smile finally leaving his face.
You will regret this foolishness, I assure you. I will defend this gate, and the lives of my family, until my last breath, Habaruko,
she replied, slowly starting to rise.
If I am too weak to stand against you now, then so be it. Wait,
Ryu said quietly, and she paused, as did Habaruko. He took a deep breath, staring up at her, before continuing.
Mom. I appreciate this. I really do. Thank you, for saving her. We couldn't have done that. You were the only one who could.
He bent down, and picked up his sword.
But this son of a bitch is ours. My son.
Valerie, the Dragon of Gate, murmured, seeming to see him despite the fact that her dark eyes were still closed.
Ryu, my little boy. But you're not, anymore, are you? You have grown so tall, so strong. Yes, I see. You have a right to take your vengeance. Well, then, Habaruko? What will it be? Will you face me, or them? Ha!
Habaruka whirled around, robes flaring and eyes twitching, and raised both hands to the heavens.
Ha! BA. Russia. Ku. Very well, then. If death is what you desire, I shall grant your wish. Come, children, to God's embrace.
His head swelled even more grotesquely than before, inflating like a balloon, the bald, round dome sprouting thorn-like spurs all over its surface as his skin shifted to a rubbery orange. His facial hair almost seemed to braid itself as it transformed into two vertical rows of short, thrashing tentacles on either side of a slit of a mouth, both sides lined with fangs. More tentacles spilled from beneath his robes, and still more from his sleeves, his arms becoming two particularly large and long examples. Each of those two ended in leaf-shaped appendages with more thorns on the underside, surrounding fanged maws identical to that on his face, one of which continued to clutch his cane. His eyes were the last to change, becoming gleaming green spheres, their sockets round but their shape reduced to narrow slits by a heavy brow ridge that covered them, actually squashing and widening the orbs themselves. In the end, despite his hideous transformation, he stood no taller than he had before, and in fact still wore his green and purple robes. For a moment, everybody almost laughed. And then they felt the power radiating off of him with every breath, a heaviness in the air itself that almost slammed them down to their knees, as the soul storm of Evray erupted in the air around them, called up once more by the man who had damned them.
As I said, I am not a violent man by choice,
Habaruko hissed. Light began to shine over him, first red, then green, then yellow and finally blue.
But over 3 millennia, I have had much time to prepare for occasions on which my hand would be forced, by those less charitable than myself. He's going to just keep on pumping himself up unless we do something.
Cat snarled.
We gotta take down that wall. No helping it, then,
Ryu growled.
Somebody get some wise fruit ready for me.
Before anybody could say anything more, he transformed, growing 20 times as large as his opponent and releasing his fury upon the wall of light that protected him. Blue energy poured into silver magic, each individual hit only making a tiny dent, but breaking it down through the sheer amount of power being unleashed. In one final, blinding flash of light, the silver wall was destroyed, and Ryu fell to his feet and then his knees, exhausted but smiling. His satisfaction faded instantly as he saw 3 blazing hands of fire, each 10 feet thick, rise up and arc over Habaruko in the same moment as Kat and Jean ran forward to either side of him. Flaming fingers caught them all, and slammed them backwards into the rest of the team, blazing and screaming. The dead, tall grass in the canyon around them caught fire as well, and Spar howled in wordless agony as the inferno raged around them. Even as Ryu rolled on the dirt frantically, he felt himself cooling down, though the burns themselves remained. A pair of wolves formed of living ice stalked between the team, chilling them all, before leaping for Habaruko, fangs bared. For a moment, it almost looked like they would hit, but just before they did, the archpriest of Saint Eva called down lightning. A pillar of electricity as massive as the fiery arms had been slammed down, ripping through both wolves before continuing on towards the team, who scattered before it.
Surround him!
Ryu yelled as Bao healed them, staggering back to his feet and drawing his sword.
He can't defend every side at once.
Again he, Kat and Jean charged, this time with Sten and Spar right behind them, as soon as the lightning faded.
Oh, can I not?
Habaruka replied before speaking more magical chants, eyes glinting, and raised his cane as the air exploded around the 5 of them just as it had with Tika. Thousands of atmospheric detonations erupted, in the space of a few seconds, and Ryu was blown back, as were the others.
Out of the way!
He heard a voice roar behind him, and he dove to the side despite the agony he was in. As soon as he did, Rand rolled past him, curled up in a sphere, bearing down on Habaruko like a tumbling boulder. Unconcerned, the archpriest simply called up another wolf of ice, identical to the 2 created by Nina and Dees, which intercepted Rand and knocked him back the way he had come, his shell completely iced over.
This isn't working, boss.
Sten muttered quietly, dropping down next to Ryu as Bao and Rand healed everybody a second time.
Every time we try and get close to him, he just blows us away. So I see,
Ryu growled, narrowing his eyes. He watched Bao fire twice, but Habaruka's facial tentacles caught both bolts out of the air, contemptuously snapping them.
All right, then. He wants to fight long range? Long range it is.
Glancing around, he raised his voice.
Let's give him a dose of his own medicine, people. Oh, yeah.
Dees glanced at Nina first, then Sten, before jerking her head towards Habaruko.
I think not.
The archpriest sneered, as the earth began to shake around them. The earth, and the mountain above, which responded in kind, rocks and boulders tumbling down. As they bounced off of her back and wings, Valerie roared in pain, and though the sound tore at Ryu's heart, he forced himself to ignore it for the moment and concentrate on the task at hand. Defying his own instincts, trusting in the supernatural strength that his role and fate had brought him, he stood in the path of the largest boulder coming towards Nina, and brought his sword around to slice it in two.
We've got this!
Kat yelled, planting her staff and swinging around on it to shatter another rock with a double kick, as Rand caught another in both massive hands, throwing it in the path of the next. Everybody was battered and bruised, all the same, but the three of them were able to block the truly deadly boulders.
Keep casting!
A moment later, the spell was complete, and 3 upon 3 flaming arms joined and flowed together and joined again until only a single limb as large as Valerie's entire body roared towards Habaruko, claws stretched to embrace him. The archpriest watched it come, only to speak more magic, raise his hands and levitate the earth beneath his feet. A pillar of rock erupted in a shower of dirt, lifting Habaruko up and out of the way of the hand, even as it melted in and turned the lowermost section to lava.
Oh, no you don't, asshole!
Dees yelled, before summoning a column of lightning. As it crashed down towards Habaruko, another one came in at diagonal angle, and the two met, crackling and clashing until both dissipated. While the opposing spells raged, Nina hovered between Jean and Spar, and the three of them summoned another wolf of ice. This one, however, had 3 heads, 2 roughly humanoid attached to either side of the central canine. Roaring, it leapt for Habaruko, who summoned flaming limbs once more, intercepting all 3.
Now, boss!
Sten urged Ryu, pressing several berries of wise fruit into his hand. Nodding without a word, Ryu choked them down, then ran forward even as his guts writhed in agonized protest. As Dees and Habaruka both raised their canes, and explosions ravaged the air around everybody and everything, he transformed once more. Spreading his wings and rising up to the top of the floating pillar, he inhaled, then roared. For a moment, he saw Habaruka's face, watched his eyes widen in sudden shock and anger, and then his fury demolished both the column of stone and the demon lord atop it. Flung backward in a shower of rubble, Habaruka went down, smoldering and smoking, and Ryu landed as well, then buckled.
Easy.
Kat caught him, as more healing magic from Bao covered the party.
Did you get him? Better make sure.
Bao grunted, firing his crossbow into the smoking crater, reloading and firing again.
Come on, come on. Ha!
The demon lord's voice echoed, as he slowly climbed back to his feet, leaning on his cane.
BA.
Blackened and burned, his rubbery skin covered in bleeding gashes, he stood before them once more regardless.
Russia.
The flames behind and around them made his hideous, maimed state all the more apparent, but still he lived, raising his cane once more.
Coup.
And as they all charged once more, a net made of golden chains of light appeared in the air around them, and they screamed in agony as its touch burned worse than even raw electricity, constricting around them. Every nerve in his body blazed with more pain than he had ever believed to be possible, as if the limits of his ability to feel were being deliberately overloaded.
You enjoyed Sarah Silverwall so much,
Habaruko exulted, breathing heavily, as they writhed and howled.
I hoped you would feel similarly about its companion spell, its equivalent in offense to defense. Behold, Jade's golden chains.
Dee snarled something anatomically improbable.
You.
Ryu growled, as his vision swam, and his head grew light. He felt unconsciousness creeping in upon him, threatening to overwhelm him, but fought against it, even as the pain continued to ravage his body. Power. Baraberry's voice filled his ears, his mind, his soul, as the world turned dark. We need more of your power. God needs more of your power. Give your heart to God. Pray to God. Praise God. Sacrifice your heart and soul to God. You will become God's power.
No.
He roared, gritting his teeth and staggering back to his feet, as the golden magic faded away, and one by one the others followed suit.
Doesn't hurt one bit.
Kat snarled.
I won't give up.
Nina shouted.
Heh.
Sten forced a chuckle.
Almost bought it there. I gotta be more careful,
Rand muttered, almost absently, as he staggered back to his feet.
I'm okay,
Bao said slowly, as the two of them healed the group.
I'm okay. We still live,
Spar agreed, curling its whip.
I am fine, mon amis,
Jean assured them, only swaying slightly on his feet.
Yeah, whatever,
Dees grunted.
Come on, let's no. Are you quite done?
Habaruka sneered, as the air around them exploded once more, and they all scattered a second time.
Sten!
Nina shouted, flying out of range of the explosions.
Dees. Right.
The two of them agreed, and together they concentrated.
I think not,
Habaruka snarled, then blinked as a rainbow of light arced through the air to connect with his chest, completely harmlessly.
What? Oh, please. A new word for a verbose man,
Jean replied calmly, twirling his rapier, as Rand rolled towards Habaruka a second time.
Distraction. Oh, is that so?
The archpriest sneered, bringing down another massive pillar of lightning.
Yeah,
Rand growled, sticking one arm out and throwing Cat straight at him, even as the electricity slammed into his back.
Ha!
Habaruka brought up his cane, but Cat had no intention of using her staff. Instead, the Warren girl landed on all fours before him, snarled, and released her entire magical store in one massive blast of fire. Only a last-second summoning of ice magic blocked it, and then Dees and Nina and Sten were done casting. Fire and ice and lightning all came together, a three-sided storm of elemental fury that erupted around Habaruka all at once. A moment later, atmospheric explosions blasted all three of them, and Bao as well, sending them flying back into the raging inferno around them.
Now!
Ryu roared, ignoring the urge to check on them. Somehow, in a way that went deeper than logic or thought, he knew that they were all still alive, and he knew what they would want him and the others to do. Drawing his sword, he charged, and Jean and Cat and Spar all charged with him, as Rand healed the fallen. Straight towards the elemental maelstrom they ran, as it began to dissipate. With one final running jump, he landed in front of Habaruka, and brought his sword down upon the archpriest's head, only to have it met and deflected by his cane. Before he could strike again, Habaruka smashed him in the side of his skull, but even as he fell, he saw Cat coming in from the side. Catching her staff with several of his tentacles, the archpriest raised her into the air, and then slammed her brutally to the earth. Even as he turned to the right, Jean was there, but though his rapier sank into the demon lord's side, Habaruka simply slammed him away as he had to Ryu. Raising his staff, he caused the air around them all to detonate, and though the demon lord himself was battered by his own explosions as well, the four of them were all blown back. Luckily, more healing magic poured down, and he glanced over his shoulder to see both Rand and Bao back on their feet, along with Dees and Nina. Before he could cast again, Sten jumped down from above. Somehow, he had managed to get atop the cliffside quickly, and now descended, knives flashing. Unfortunately, Habaruka stepped out of the way, whirled, and clubbed him to the ground in a spray of blood before summoning a pillar of lightning down upon him.
No!
Cat screamed, and Ryu did as well, as he felt the Highlander's life fade away.
Last to believe,
Habaruka hissed, as more flaming hands roared towards him from the left, and an ice wolf from the right.
First to fall.
Casting each spell himself to counteract the other, he leaned back just in time to avoid Jean's rapier aimed at his right eye, and swept the prince's feet out from underneath him with his cane, causing him to stumble into Ryu's path as he charged again. Before Ryu could step around him, more explosions blew the both of them away.
And now, you. Hey, Yunaruko!
Cat howled, and Habaruka's eyes jerked away from them to glare at her, standing 6 feet away, leaning forward, and making a face. A moment later, said eyes widened in sudden comprehension too late, as Spar's whip lashed out, covered in flames. The grass man had ignited its own weapon, and now the flaming length of thorned leather curled around the archpriest, binding his arms to his side. In that instant, Sten returned to life, and Ryu remembered the Highlander's natural ability to slow his heart and quiet his pulse, the breath of sands that all of his kind were born with. Springing up, he thrust both of his daggers into Habaruka's chest, then flipped back and away, as more explosions erupted. Even with arms bound, the demon lord could still speak the words of magic, and though Bao and Rand healed them again a moment later, he still felt a bone-deep exhaustion that he knew was echoed by the rest of his team.
Come on, Ryu!
Cat yelled, and he nodded, both of them knowing that this was their last chance, and yet, that it would work. It wasn't mind-reading, or soothsaying, or prophecy, or destiny. It was faith, not in the gods or the stars, but in the rest of their team, and what they knew they would do without even looking. Charging, they crossed their arms in front of their heads as explosions ravaged them, as twin pillars of lightning were both blocked by columns of rising earth. And as they both went down, Rand blasted over their heads and slammed into Habaruka at full speed, uncurling even as he hit, as the demon lord was smashed back against the gate.
Wait!
Habaruka shouted as Rand landed on his feet, the archpriest spread eagled against the wall and held there by one of the massive farm clansman's hands against his face. Despite his plea, he was already speaking magic once more, but Rand ignored him as he punched the back of his own hand, and Habaruka's face took the brunt of the blow. Even as he did, more explosions blew him back, but Habaruka remained flat against the gate, stunned by the punch. As Bao healed them, Ryu and Kat lunged to their feet, the former's sword swinging, blocked by the archpriest's cane one last time as Spar's whip started to burn away. And then Kat reached him, not with her battle staff, but with one bare hand closing on the lower half of his face. And with a feral scream, she tore away tentacles and tongue and teeth and maw, ripping his entire jaw off in a spray of ice-cold black blood. Screaming wordlessly in agony, his means to cast magic torn from him, Habaruka stumbled forward, and Ryu moved in. A cocky line came to mind, but he discarded the thought, this wasn't that kind of fight, or that kind of kill. Instead, he hacked off one cluster of tentacles spilling from a sleeve, and then the other, as the team approached as well, backlit by the fires that raged around them. Many of them were smiling, but none in a pleasant way, with the raging inferno below and the screaming soulstorm above, they seemed almost like demons themselves, which Ryu found to be entirely fitting. Sten leapt up, knives in hand, and both blades plunged into the archpriest's belly, carving a cross-section through guts and gore that slid between the smoldering remnants of Spar's whip as the grassman threw the hilt of it to the branch of the closest tree. The branch moved at the grassman's will, catching it and pulling Habaruka into the air, still shrieking. Silent and calm, Jean surveyed the dangling archpriest for a long moment as Dees and Nina both approached. For a moment, the prince started to say something, eyes troubled. But then he seemed to remember exactly who it was who hung before him, and coldly shoved his rapier into the approximate location of his left kidney, all the way to the hilt. 2 crossbow bolts slammed into first one eye, and then a moment later, the other, and more black blood leaked from both, almost like tears. Dees raised her cane, the tip of it glowing with heat, and Habaruka's screams redoubled as she methodically cauterized all of his wounds save for those on his head. Those, she left to Nina, who heated her focusing ring similarly before applying it to his face, melting it until only a bare skull remained. Finally, Rand stepped up, seized the stumps of his arms in his massive hands, and tore the archpriest of Saint Eva clean in half down the center before throwing both halves to the ground in silent disgust.
Done.
A new voice, one familiar to them all, exulted as the soulstorm grew even fiercer, wilder, louder. The voice of Loden, the dragon god.
After 3 millennia, finally, you are mine. Come to me, Yuna.
And as Habaruka's screams trailed off into eternity, so did those of all of his victims, until the canyon beyond gate was silent once more save for the roaring of the canyon fires.
Why didn't he do the whole black fire bit?
Ryu asked finally.
Probably because that particular thing was something along the lines of a blessing from Saint Eva,
Dees explained, shaking her head.
At least they see it that way. But to receive a god's blessing requires true belief, and no matter what he said, or even thought himself. I don't think Yuna was actually capable of really believing in anything except himself. That's why his soul didn't go to Evans, either. It was up for grabs. And it looks like Loden wanted him a lot more than Evans did. All I care about is that the bastard's dead,
Kat said, spitting.
That, 5 pounds of meat, 10 mugs of ale, and about 20 hours of sleep. That sucked. I think we could all do with something along those lines,
Nina agreed.
Unfortunately, I believe we still have business to deal with first. Starting with putting out these fires. Shall we, Dees? Yeah.
The snake sorceress muttered as the two of them began wearily casting ice magic on the canyon.
Anybody see where Smith went?
Ryu muttered, mentally kicking himself over hesitating on her name. Nobody there was going to be fooled.
I'm sorry,
Spar said quietly.
According to the grass, she ran away during the fight.
It paused for a moment before continuing.
Apparently, she believed that she would only get in the way, or worse, prove to be a liability. So she wasn't being a coward or anything,
Bao grunted, scratching his head.
Just counting on us to win it. Kind of nice to know that she wasn't just ditching us, for some reason. It's how she's always dealt with her problems,
Ryu said with a sigh.
Running away. Guess I shouldn't have expected it to stop now.
He took a deep breath, then turned and faced the dragon.
We did it, Mom. My son,
Valerie murmured, lowering her head, her voice still soft and slow.
Yes. You did. All of you. You have saved all who are still yet to be born untold pain and suffering. That man. In his own way, he may have even been more abominable than Baruberi and Evans both. Everybody who lives, and whoever will, owe you a debt of gratitude for cleansing this world of him. That's what he did, all right,
Ryu agreed, as the others fell into line on both sides of him, none of them speaking.
And that's what we do.
He shook his head slowly.
Baruberi. He's the only one left, now. In this world, yes, he is,
Valerie agreed.
Habaruku is gone, as is the Church of Saint Eva. Without its leader, or its capital, it will fade away in time. No more prayers or souls will be sent to Evans. No more innocent lives will be sacrificed to him. Then all we have to do is find Baruberi, and finish him off, too,
Kat said, but there was a note of uncertainty in her voice.
Right. No,
Dees murmured, shaking her head.
Evan's strength has probably already reached the point where it will continue to grow, all by itself, even without any additional input. It'll be a slower process, but it'll still happen. So what?
Ren scowled.
We killed him, but aside from that, as far as Evans is concerned, it was all for nothing. Oh, no, children,
Valerie assured them.
As the sorceress of Wisdom said, so long as no more power is sent to him, the growth of Evan's strength will slow to a trickle. Yes, eventually he will grow strong enough to break through these gates, but what?
Everybody except Dees and Spar shouted.
But
Jean flailed.
It was said that only the life of a dragon clansman. And only from this side, yes. Come on, people,
Dees told them wearily.
Remember what we're talking about here. Evans is a real, bona fide, literal god, even if he's an evil one. The regular rules don't apply to them, if they're powerful enough. That gate wouldn't have been able to keep Miria in there. Why do you think it took so much trouble to lock her up in Pagoda? And that was built with the personal assistance of Lawton himself, back when he had the power for that sort of thing. It only works on Evans because he's still relatively young. But
Ryu stared at the gate.
Look, even if we did want to.
He took a deep breath before continuing.
To try killing a freaking god, how would we be able to? We can't open the gate without.
He left it hanging.
There is a way,
Valerie assured him.
As the guardian of this gate, I will be able to open these doors without sacrificing the life of another. The only question is, if you wish me to. By the time Evans is strong enough to break through, it will likely be another 100 years, or even 200. Should you wish to walk away now, to find Baruberi and end it there, I would not blame you, nor would Lawton. You could live out your lives, free of the burden destiny has placed upon you all, long before Evans' ascension. We could,
Ryu slowly repeated.
Just settle it with Baruberi, and then free. No more demons. No more destiny bullshit. Just living our lives, the way we want to. Like we always wanted to. That was always it, wasn't it? The only reason we did this in the first place was so we could get out of it.
He raised his head to stare at Valerie.
But if we do, then when Evans does come out, no force in the world will be able to stop him,
Valerie agreed.
The 9 of you, here and now, are the only hope for Evans' defeat. But whether you choose to take up that duty or not, the choice is finally, entirely yours, as it should have always been and never was before. You may enter this gate, and defy a god. Or you may walk away, and live happily.
Power. We need yet more of your power. God needs more of your power. Give your soul to God. Pray to God. Praise God. Sacrifice your heart and mind to God. You will become God's power.
What the hell kind of a choice is that?
Bao whispered.
If it's going to be thousands of years from now, maybe. But we don't even know that. It's the kind we've been wanting, this whole time.
Sten laughed, short and bitter.
Careful what you wish for, right? We should have remembered that. I know it's wrong, but if I have an out from fighting a god? Every instinct in my body screaming at me to run. What a pain in the ass,
Kat growled, her troubled eyes belying her angry words.
If we don't even know when. No, 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 no.
Jean protested, shaking his head.
A demon god that will destroy the world? We cannot let such a thing happen. This beautiful world. Let us protect it with our own hands. It's not that easy, Jean,
Nina told him quietly.
Even if we don't know how long she can hold him back. We want to do something, now, but... Are we sure that we'll be able to, even if we try? If we leave this god be, it will eventually destroy the world,
Spar said, as calm as ever.
To just walk away, and allow that to happen. Is that right? We should just kill him,
Rand muttered, but he sounded as if he didn't even believe that it was that simple himself.
We've come this far, haven't we? Haven't we?
Dee simply watched them all, and said nothing.
You do not have to choose now,
Valerie assured them.
Go, and rest. Recover from this dreadful struggle. I am wounded, but not fatally. I am in no danger of failing my duty, now that Habaruko is gone. There is Baruberi, of course, and yet... I doubt that he has any interest in me now. However long it takes you to make your decision, I will remain here. We'll be back, Mom,
Ryu promised her, raising a hand to pat the side of her muzzle, the way Patty had.
You know. Dad's still alive. He's helping us, too. He'll be arriving here, soon. I'll make sure to bring him out here, so he can meet you too. Oh, my son.
Tears began to trickle from Valerie's closed eyes.
You have become such a wonderful young man. No matter how much I have always wished, that I could have been there for you for all of those years. To see you now, as you are. That alone almost makes it all seem worthwhile. Can you forgive me for that? There's nothing to forgive,
Ryu whispered, his own eyes wet, for the second time in 10 years.
There never was.
They stood there for some time, as more snow began to fall, finally covering the canyon as well, until they all heard the floating townships approach and turned away to return home. Nobody said a word. One more cry in the night.